Alaikum. Welcome to Millennium TV News. This is Ishra Jahan. Now the top stories. White House hires first transgender member of staff. Europe migrant crisis, surge in numbers at EU borders. Syrian archaeologist killed in Palmyra by IS militants. Up to 150 drowned and shot fleeing Boko Haram ambush in Nigeria. Sukai hails new Myanmar alliance. Barcelona defender Gerard Piqué says sorry after red card. Now the details. Rafi Friedman Gerspan started working as an outreach and recruitment director for presidential staff on Tuesday. Her commitment to the transgender rights reflects the values of the administration, a senior White House official said. It is President Barack Obama's latest move in support of gay, lesbian, bisexual and transgender rights. Rafi Friedman Gerspan demonstrates this kind of relationship this administration champions, said Valerie Jarrett, a senior advisor to the president. Ms. Friedman Gerspan previously worked as a policy advisor for the National Center of Transgender Equality. Her appointment to the White House has been hailed as an important step by key members of the LGBT community. Our government works best when it reflects the reality of who we are as Americans, said Aisha Moody Mills, the head of the Gay and Lesbian Victory Fund and Institute. The Department of Disease Defense is reviewing its ban on transgender men and women from serving in the military, and the White House has said it welcomes that move. The number of migrants at the EU's borders reached a record high of 107,500 in July, officials say, as a sharp surge in expected asylum requests was reported in Germany. Germany has seen a wave of migration from Syria and the Balkans and now says it could receive as many as 750,000 asylum seekers this year. The EU has been struggling to cope with migrant arrivals in recent months. France and the UK say they will sign a deal to tackle the crisis in Calais. Over the summer, thousands of migrants have sought to set the UK through the Channel Tunnel from makeshift camps around the northern French city. France's Interior Minister Bernard Cazeneuve and British counterpart Theresa May say they will sign a deal there on Thursday to strengthen their country's cooperation on security, the fight against criminal smugglers, human traffickers and clandestine immigration. In early August, the UK pledged to add €10 million to a fund established in September 2014 to secure the port of Calais and initially endowed with €15 million over 3 years. Khaled al-Assad had been held for about a month by the group which seized the UNESCO World Heritage Site in May. The 80-year-old family informed Syria's director of antiquities Mamoun Abdul Karim that he had been beheaded. He described Mr. Assad as one of the most important pioneers in Syrian archaeology in the 20th century. IS has demolished several ancient sites in Iraq and there are fears that it will destroy Palmyra, one of the archaeological jewels of the Middle East. The Syrian state news agency SANA and the UK-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights reported that Mr. Assad had been beheaded on Tuesday at a square outside the museum in the modern town next to the ruins, also known as Tudmore. His body was then hung from one of the Greco-Roman columns, Mr. Abdul Karim said. IS militants had tried to extract information from him about where some of the Palmyra's treasures had been hidden to save them from destruction, Abdul Karim added. Mr. Assad spent most of his life working to promote and protect Palmyra. He was in charge of the site for 4 decades until 2003 when he retired. He then worked as an expert with the Antiquities and Museum Department. Since overrunning Palmyra, IS had destroyed a 2nd century statue of a lion and 2 nearby Islamic shrines, which it described as manifestations of polytheism. The group also released a video in July showing some 20 captured government soldiers being shot at Palmyra's theater. Syrian government forces have been shot to drive IS out of the Palmyra area in recent months and there has been fierce fighting in nearby towns. In a separate development on Tuesday, a suicide bomb attack on Kurdish security forces in the northeastern side of Qamishli reported killed at least 10 people. The United Nations also said typhoid had broken out in the besieged Yarmouk refugee camp in the suburbs of Damascus. A UN spokesman said at least 6 cases of the disease had been confirmed. Up to 150 people drowned in a river or were shot dead, being Boko Haram gunmen who raided a remote village in Nigeria's northeastern Yobe state, locals said on Tuesday. Dozens of militants arrived on motorcycles and a car on Thursday last week and opened fire, scattering terrified residents of Kukuwagari. They opened fire instantly, which forced residents to flee. They shot a number of people. Unfortunately, many residents who tried to flee plunged into the river, which is full from the rain. Many drowned, Modu Balumi, a resident of the village, told AFP. But latest told we have 150 people either are drowned in the attack. The gunmen deliberately killed a fisherman who tried to be drowning residents of the village. Mr. Balumis said the bodies of many of the drowned were picked out by locals several miles away. News of the attack was slow to emerge because the militants have destroyed telecom masts around the village, around 50 kilometers from Yobe state capital Damaturu, since the emergency began in 2009. Boko Haram gunmen attacked our village on Thursday, which led to the deaths of around 150 people. Most of the victims died in the river while trying to escape. The gunmen opened fire on the village, forcing people to run to safety. Bukar Tizani, another villager, told AFP. Most residents, particularly women and children, ran towards the river in confusion. They were pursued by the gunmen who kept firing at them. In the frantic effort to escape, they jumped into the river, which was full to the brim. A local government official confirmed the attack but put the death toll much lower at around 50. Myanmar opposition leader Aung San Suu Kyi has announced that she will form an alliance with Suu Kyi, the ousted chairman of the Government Union Solidarity and Development Party. She was speaking as Parliament reopened on Tuesday for its last session before November's national elections. Last week, Suu Kyi was dramatically removed from his position. His dismissal was seen as an emphatic move by President Thein Sein to tighten his political grip ahead of the vote. Speaking while MPs gathered in the National Nay Pai Ta for a final round of parliamentary meetings before the 8 November vote, Ms. Suu Kyi said that Suu Kyi's dismissal by the president on Wednesday made it clear who is the enemy and who is the ally. She said that her National League for Democracy party could work with the ally. The Nobel laureate joined the US and Britain in expressing concern over the removal of Suu Kyi before the elections, which are the first since democratic reforms began in 2011. This is not what you expect in a working democracy, she said in relation to the circumstances of Suu Kyi's removal, adding that divisions within the USDP were likely to result in increased electoral support for the NLD. Correspondents say that the alliance between Ms. Suu Kyi and Suu Kyi is significant because she had retained his influential role as parliamentary speaker and has been widely seen as a possible compromise presidential candidate. Ms. Suu Kyi herself cannot run for the post under the terms of the constitution drafted by the military government. She has not detailed how her alliance at Suu Kyi will work, but one likely area of collaboration might be amendment of the constitution to allow her to run for the presidency. The government, for its part on Tuesday, has tried to downplay Suu Kyi's removal, which it described as part of a normal course of business for a political party. Viewers, will be taking a short break. We'll be back in a moment. Stay with us. Bilateral issues discussed between Hasina and Modi. 8 killed, 10 injured in India landslide, many trapped. US inflation propped up by petrol prices. China shares up after central bank intervenes. Real Madrid sign Inter Milan midfielder Mateo Kovacic. Let's move to the next news. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina on Tuesday met her Indian counterpart Narendra Modi at his official residence on Wednesday and discussed bilateral issues including strengthening business ties between Bangladesh and India for mutual benefits. Both the countries have a huge market. We can do a lot more together for our mutual economic benefits, she said. PM Press Secretary Ihsanul Karim briefed reporters after the meeting. He said the Indian Prime Minister agreed with Sheikh Hasina and welcomed the recent initiative of the Bangladesh-Bhutan-India-Nepal Motor Vehicle Agreement. Sheikh Hasina also welcomed the initiative. Turning to the land boundary agreement, Modi expressed his satisfaction over its implementation without any trouble. It's harder to implement any political decision than taking it. It's an example for the world to implement this decision without any trouble. Ihsanul Karim quoted the Indian PM as telling Hasina. Recalling his recent visit to Dhaka, the Indian Prime Minister appreciated the hospitality that he received during the visit and said he was overwhelmed seeing the Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman Memorial Museum. Modi expressed his country's interest to digitize and modernize the museum and said a team would be sent on this purpose. Citing instances of holding joint military exercises between two countries, the Indian Prime Minister proposed holding joint disaster management exercises among SAARC members countries. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina appreciated his idea. Modi said he would visit London next November and expressed his desire to meet Tulip Siddiq, daughter of Sheikh Rihana and niece of Sheikh Hasina. 8 persons were killed and 10 others injured when a building adjoining the historic Manikaran Sahib Gurdwara caved in due to a massive landslide this afternoon. Kullu Deputy Commissioner Rakesh Kanwar confirmed that 8 bodies which were buried under huge boulders have been extricated while search is for more. Eyewitnesses claimed that the dead could be more than 10 in number as a large number of people had taken shelter in the building close to Gurdwara when the tragedy struck. The exact number of dead or injured could not be ascertained as some bodies were feared to be buried under the debris. The district administration has sought the assistance of Gurdwara authorities in locating and identifying the bodies as most people staying in the buildings were outsiders. People ran helter-skelter at border swells on the building and many were trapped as a huge portion of the 3-story building virtually collapsed. The locals and the Gurdwara management immediately swung into action and started rescue operations while additional district magistrate, sub-divisional magistrate, Kullu and the other district of officials rushed to the spot. Those injured have been admitted to Zonal Hospital at Kullu and condition of 7 of them is stated to be serious. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has left New Delhi for home after a short visit to India to attend the funeral of Shubhra Mukherjee, the wife of Indian President Pranab Mukherjee. A VVIP flight of Biman Bangladesh Airlines carrying the Prime Minister and her entourage took off from Indira Gandhi International Airport, New Delhi at 3:35 p.m. Indian State Minister for External Affairs V.K. Singh and Bangladesh High Commissioner to India Syed Muazzam Ali saw the minister off at the airport. The flight is expected to reach Hazrat Shah Jalal International Airport at 6 in the evening. Viewers, now the business news. Core inflation, which stripes out food and energy prices, went up by 0.1% in the month according to official figures. Food prices rose by 0.2% while the energy index rose by 0.1% as higher prices for petrol offset other lower energy costs. Over the past 12 months, overall inflation had risen by 0.2%. Consumer inflation slowed in July following 2 months of slightly faster gains. The slowdown reflected in part of the biggest drop in airfares in nearly 2 decades. The 0.1% rise in July followed gains of 0.3% in June and 0.4% in May. US Federal Reserve had said that it needs to feel reasonably confident that inflation is moving back to its 2% goal before beginning to raise US interest rates. Some economists have forecast that the Fed will raise interest rates at its next meeting in September, given that the US unemployment rate has fallen to a 7-year low of 5.3%. Chinese shares at one point lost 5%, adding to the 6% fall on Tuesday. But the intervention left the Shanghai Composite 1.2% higher with closing level of 3,794.11 points. Bangladesh's foreign exchange reserves have crossed the $26 billion mark for the first time. On Monday, the reserves reached $26.03 billion, enough to foot an import bill at least 7 months, said Qazi Saidur Rahman, General Manager of Bangladesh Bank's Forex Reserve and Treasury Management Department. He attributed the achievement to the increased inflow of remittance from the expatriates and earning from exports. International benchmark requires the country to have reserves to meet import costs of at least 3 months. Bangladesh clears Asian Clearing Union bills every 2 months. The less spending in import of foil wool and commodities also play a role in increasing the reserves, Rahman said. According to the central bank data, forex reserves were a little over $21 billion on July 31st this year. For the first time in country's history, the reserves had crossed the $23 billion mark on February 26 this year. But the figure dropped to $22 billion after the central bank cleared import bills for January-February period amounting $1.01 billion to ACU in the first week of March. The reserves again crossed $23 billion on March 30th and exceeded $24 billion on April 29th. The reserves soared over the $25 billion mark on June 25th. The payment of $1 billion ACU bills in the first week of July saw it dropping to $24.4 billion on July 8th, but it recovered within a week to rise to $25 billion again on July 14th. Qazi Saidur Rahman on Monday said forex reserve would remain $26 billion until the first week of September, when the import bills for July-August period would be paid to ACU. Viewers, now the sports news. Real Madrid have signed midfielder Mateo Kovacic from Inter Milan for an undisclosed fee. The 20-year-old Croatia international has signed a 6-year contract at the Bernabeu, where he will be presented to the Real fans on Wednesday. Kovacic scored 8 goals and provided 11 assists in 97 games for Inter, whom he joined from Dinamo Zagreb in 2013. Real, who finished second behind Barcelona in La Liga last season, began the new campaign on Sunday. Rafael Benitez's side play at Sporting Gijón in a 1930 BST kickoff. Kovacic, who has played 21 times for his country, will join countryman Luka Modric at the club. Barcelona defender Gerard Piqué has apologized for being sent off in the second leg of Spanish Super Cup but denied insulting the assistant referee. The ex-Manchester United player 28 confronted the official during Monday's game against Athletic Bilbao, which they drew 1-1 and lose 5-1 on aggregate. "I want to apologize because the attitude with which I protested was not the correct one," he tweeted. "At no point did I direct any insult towards the assistant referee." The Royal Spanish Football Federation is expected to announce Piqué's punishment on Wednesday. Barcelona began their bid for a 6th La Liga title in 8 years at Bilbao on Sunday. The BCB has received expression of interest from 11 enterprises for the 3rd edition of Bangladesh Premier League. But no one who participated in the first 2 editions submitted their applications, after the BCB had terminated contracts with the 7 franchises last year due to payment issues. Afzalur Rahman Sinha, BPL Governing Council Chairman, said the new franchises have to pay 1 crore Bangladesh taka as a bank guarantee. They have also set a few subjective criteria, including involvement with sports at some capacity in the past. The EOI were received from DBL Group, Sohana Group of Industries, Beximco, BBS Cables, Blue Communications, Networld Bangladesh, Mediacom Limited, Index Group, Bengal Communication, Axiom Technology and Fiber at Home Limited. The next step will be to scrutinize the interested parties, Sinha said in a press conference on Tuesday. "We'll speak to them. Those who are real sports lovers and were involved with various clubs and sports in the past will get priority." Ismail Haidar Mullik, the Governing Council Member Secretary, said that the process of choosing the new franchises would be completed within the next 3 weeks. "We hope to start on November 22nd or 25th. Groundwork had been completed. We want to do the BPL with 5 teams, but seeing the response, it now seems we can start with 7 teams. Viewers, let's have a look at Millennium TV News Recap. White House hires first transgender member of staff. Europe migrant crisis, surge in numbers at EU borders. Syrian archaeologist killed in Palmyra by IS militants. Up to 150 drowned and shot fleeing Boko Haram ambush in Nigeria. Sukai hails new Myanmar alliance. Barcelona defender Gerard Piqué says sorry after red card. You are up to date with our top stories so far here on Millennium TV, and don't forget to log into www.millenniumtv.net. Thank you and stay with Millennium TV. Allah Hafiz.